trust me, John Connor. I love you. I love you, please. I love you, John.
The most challenging part of scoring this show is keeping up with all the different character arcs. It's not like a typical show where you have a villain and you have a hero, and the way they interact is always the same.
I do have a very strong sense of what I want from music, and it's really kind of about the level of emotionality versus sentimentality, and how much can you play tension, and how much of it feels real versus just sort of false, ginned-up tension, which I feel like I get a lot on TV soundtracks.
We started talking about the music of the original two movies and how much it meant and how well it worked in that context. And they asked me what I would want to do for the show, and the first thing I said was that we need to draw from that sound. We need to make the show connect with the universe of the movies. And from there, I also knew that we had to take the show in some other directions, mainly because it explores Sarah's character more than the movies ever did.
We're probably 99% score, and we have very few songs. It really comes down on Bear to carry a lot, and he's created very, very specific themes for each of the characters that he manages to use in different ways, and I'm constantly surprised, and yet it always feels like a show that I know.
Every time you hear the theme song to the movie, I always think of Schwarzenegger. I don't necessarily think of Sarah Connor's character. So I knew we needed a theme for Sarah, and it needed to be more emotional. It had to have more depth and more warmth.
One of the things that I think is so important about how Bear approaches his work is his understanding of drama. When we go through a music and sound spotting session, he will be able to articulate what exactly it is that the scene should be communicating.
Your daughter is beautiful.
Thank you.
I think he's created a distinctive sound for our series, using very specific instruments.
Every episode, in fact, I get together with my percussionist, M.B. Gordy, at his studio, and he has a giant oil drum and some literally hubcaps and metal slabs, and he gets chains and hammers and just smashes them, playing the music that I've written out. It's all very carefully orchestrated music. It just happens to be played by a bunch of metal junk. And that really brought out the metallic, cold, robotic percussion sound that you hear in the score.
He understands film. And a lot of times, you know, despite your best efforts, what you get on film is not quite where it needs to be, or not quite what you had hoped it would be. And you can look at a piece of film without any music whatsoever, and it can play a little bit flat.
The other element in the score is this warm orchestral feel that is associated with Sarah Connor's character. And to do that, we use some strings, but we use them in ways that are very unusual. We work with a string quartet, but it's what I call an electric string quartet. It's 4 string instruments, 2 violins, a baritone violin, and a cello, that are not mic'd in a room the way you would typically record them, but they're run through guitar amps. And then we mic the amps as if we were recording guitars. The result is this sound that sounds like strings. It's undeniably warm and rich and live and acoustic, but it also sounds filtered and electronic and robotic and weird and a little cold.
If I had my way.
I'm a huge Bruce Springsteen freak. I only listen to Bruce Springsteen when I write the show. I listen to it 24/7. And there was a time during the strike when I started listening to this one particular bootleg concert of Bruce Springsteen, and he does a cover of this Samson and Delilah, which is, you know, this old tune from the 20s. And I just fell in love with the song, and I came into the writer's room, and I just put it on speakerphone. I said, this is the start of the season.
Josh called me when he was writing the first episode and said he had an idea about using an old gospel tune called Samson and Delilah.
There were sort of many Samsons and many Delilahs in the episode, so I knew thematically I was something I was really interested in.
This tune not only really inspired him, but also in very strange ways, the lyrics of this tune emulated certain events that happened in the story.
Lyrically, I find it really powerful and exciting, and I love that kind of music. You know, I love gospel, and I thought that I could probably do a pretty good version of it if I had my way with it.
It really, for me, was an answer to the Johnny Cash song. It was another song that was very biblical, had a very old, soulful approach to it.
So we met, the three of us, and started discussing and played music that we like and talked about it. And that was the beginning of about a 3-week process of me recording some tracks, doing demos, getting together, talking about it.
I was coming from more of a, you know, rock and roll standpoint, and he's coming from a, you know, composer's standpoint. But I also understood that the song was going to be used in the bed of the soundtrack, and it had to have a sort of cinematic quality.
Bear didn't want to just do a version of the song, he wanted to do a Terminator version of the song.
Delilah, she climbed up on Samson's knee, said, tell me where your strength lies, if you please. It's storytelling, you know, it's a real traditional folk song, and I felt like I had to figure out what that emotional arc of that song was.
She, you know, wanted it to be almost more like a Scottish folk song, and amazingly, I think we actually ended up somewhere in the middle, which is we ended up with both.
If I had my way, if I had my way. I find it a very interesting experience and a real challenge, because I don't normally sing this kind of music, so I'm really, it excited me to do it, and I'm really proud of the results of it. If I had my way, if I had my way, if I had my way, I would burn this building down.
1, 2, 3, and...
If I had my way, I'd burn this whole building down.
That was awesome. It sounds perfect, actually.
Thanks, guys.
One take wonder, huh?
Yep, one take wonder, that's me. Do you want to bring me in, Bear? Lila was a woman, she was fine and fair. She had good looks and coal black hair. Delilah, she gained ground on Samson's mind. First he saw this woman, she looked so fine. Delilah, she climbed up on Samson's knee, said, tell me where your strength lies, if you please. Then she spoke so kind and she talked so fair, till Samson said, Delilah, cut off my hair, you can shave my head, clean as my hand, and my strength becomes as natural as any man. If I had my way, if I had my way, if I had my way, I'd burn this whole building down. Now we've read about old Samson as far back as his birth. He was the strongest man that ever lived on earth. One day while Samson's walking along, looked down on the ground and saw no jawbone. Then he stretched out his arms and his chains broke like thread. And when he got to move, 10,000 men was dead. If I had my way, if I had my way, if I had my way, I'd burn this whole building down. If I had my way, if I had my way, if I had my way, I burn this building down. Woo-hoo.
Two. 1, 2, 3.
Then old Samson and the lion got entwined in a fight. And Samson, he jumped up and took on the lion's might. Well, know just how a lion can kill a man with his paws. Well, Samson got his hands up round that lion's jaws, and he ripped that beast and he killed him dead. And the bees made honey in the lion's head. If I had my way, if I had my way, if I had my way, I'd burn this whole building down. If I had my way, if I had my way, if I had my way, burning this building down.
One, two, three, and.
If I had my way, if I had my way, if I